Hello and welcome to this Jose Capablanca video. So this is Capablanca The Prodigy earlier in his career, near the very beginning, as he was about maybe 12 years old in this game from 1901. And before I dive into this game, I'd like to mention that I also do a series on Bobby Fischer, and that's what I plan to do with Capablanca, is create a playlist of multiple games with Capablanca, and then I already started that with Fischer as well. And now that I'm mentioning Fischer, Bobby Fischer said that his early chess teacher that helped Fischer before Fischer became, the great player that he was known to be, when he was starting out, Bobby Fischer's teacher had him go over 100 games of all the previous great players, especially the world chess champions, Capablanca included. And I would recommend that you go over maybe not 100 games per player, but at least go over some games of these great players of the past, especially for beginners, because the games from the distant past, 100 years ago, are a little easier to understand than the complicated computer games that we have by today's great chess masters. All right, back to Capablanca from 1901 here. Capablanca begins with e4. And Jose Capablanca from Havana, Cuba, he was born in 1888, and he was the third world chess champion. I believe he became champion around 1921 and held the title, I think, till about 1927, around 6 years, where Alexander Alekhine took the title from him. All right, so Capablanca was known to play d4 more often later in his career and play more solid strategic games, whereas e4 can be more of an attacking game, and that can be more common with younger players. When you first start playing chess, you just want to attack and go after the king, and then as you improve, you learn more strategy. So a common way to play here is e4, e5, keeping things even in the center. And the game continues with knight to f3. So Capablanca immediately putting pressure on this pawn. The pawn is defended. And so we have a battle waging around this e5 pawn. And so the game continues with the bishop developing here, adding more pressure to the center indirectly by attacking the knight, which is protecting this pawn. And you might think that they could capture the knight, and then if the pawn is if the bishop is recaptured or captured, then the knight could take the pawn, but white would be able to regain that I could show you here. Let's see. Let's say they just attack here. Well, then you could just take, and fork both of these pieces. If the knight retreats, then you just can even material here. So in the game, we had bishop to b5 being played. So in this position, this is the Ruy Lopez opening, one of the oldest chess openings, and also known to be a very strong opening for white. It can be, a little more, can be positional or attacking, depending what variations you go into. So here the opponent plays the Berlin defense, which a lot of times can be more of a strategic defense. And, Capablanca, he decides to castle immediately, getting his king to safety, bringing his rook towards the center. And then we have the unprotected pawn being captured, but that allows the center to be opened up while the king is stuck here in the center and has not castled yet. So Capablanca takes advantage of that by immediately attacking this pawn along with the knight here. And so bishop to e7, getting ready to castle. And Capablanca finds the move that the computer says is best, immediately attacking this knight, putting pressure on that knight. And now we have that being ignored in favor of a retreat and a counterattack on the bishop here. So after bishop retreats, a mistake by the young Capablanca. He was probably not thoroughly familiar with this opening, as he was only about 12 years old at the time. And Capablanca, even later in his career, was known to be maybe a little lazy when it comes to opening theory. Maybe he did not enjoy studying openings, and he became such a great player that he could just win a lot of games because he was just playing at such a higher level than average chess masters. And he really only had serious problems when he would have to play the best of the best players. So a counterattack here, the best move, threatening this knight. So now we have capture, capture, and here a pawn capture with check. So the bishop recaptures this pawn, and the bishops are exchanged now. It helps develop the queen. And at this point, black has a slight edge because, if we look at this, black has 3 pieces developed. He can castle kingside or queenside, and white only has the king kind of developed, castled to safety, and this rook is castled towards the center, but it's not yet on an open file. It'll probably go to the E file here, lining up on the king, and white needs to recapture this pawn. So after capture, which is best, and the computer says this is a great move, here it does pull the queen out towards the center. There's maybe a threat of bringing the rook over and attacking the queen here, pinning the knight. Let's see what Capablanca's opponent does here. So king castles to safety, but this is an inaccuracy. It would have been better to castle queenside, and then if you would have castled queenside, it would have created a queen and rook battery down this open D file. So Capablanca develops his knight, which is best. Rook comes to the center, and here, not the best move. This kind of gives black a slight edge, but Capablanca throws his knight forward, attacking the bishop here, maybe trying to go into a bishop versus knight endgame. So let's see what happens next. His opponent just develops a rook, and bishop is developed here by Capablanca, and the game continues with an attack on the knight. So now the knight is forced to make a decision. He decides to knock out the bishop, and a bishop versus knight endgame favors the bishop when there are pawns on both sides of the board, because the bishop can zip across the board much faster than a knight that's a little bit slower. So the game continues with queen capturing, so we have a battery here, preventing this rook from moving here, because then there is a queen sacrifice that could lead to a back rank mate. So what does Capablanca do? He gives his king a little bit of breathing room here, the best move according to the computer, and now the game is almost dead even. So we continue with centralization of the queen, a good strategy when it comes to the queen. From the center here, the queen can attack in many different directions. got that arrow off a little bit. So Capablanca captures. That helps his opponent develop a rook towards the center, attacking the bishop. The bishop takes out the knight, and so we're trading down into a rook endgame, and it's pretty much even here. So what will Capablanca do next? He decides to attack the rook, kind of putting the situation in his opponent's hands to decide what to do here, trade off more material, and the opponent decides to double rooks. Now there's a threat of capturing here and going ahead in material. So Capablanca captures, we have recapture, and rook to the center here, as that rook was doing nothing in the corner. And now there's a threat of a back rank mate. So, what should Capablanca's opponent do here? Well, he pushes his pawn forward, an excellent move, although the computer recommends king to f8. And another strategy that you want to do in the endgame is march your kings in towards the center, toward the action. And when there's only a few pieces on the board, the kings can definitely help with offense or defense. So the rook grabs the 7th rank. So not good for Capablanca's opponent. Now there's pressure on this pawn. The king is cut off, stuck on the back rank. So the pawn marches forward, but now this pawn can be captured. So Capablanca refrains from that, moving his king towards the center, preventing his opponent's rook from attacking here on black's 7th rank. So pawn pushes forward, getting out of danger, the best move in the position. Capablanca pushes a pawn, kind of slowing the forward momentum of this A pawn. So now we have rook backing up, protecting this F pawn, maybe assisting with a push of this pawn. So now rook behind the pawn, usually a great strategy, get the rook behind the pawns where it can keep an eye on them, especially any pawn that's trying to push forward. So Capablanca's opponent goes after this backward pawn here, and now we have an exchange of pawns. So material's still even at this point. The computer says the game is dead even. So what will happen here? How will this young prodigy, Capablanca, the 3rd world chess champion, how will he try to win this game? Let's find out. So the pawn is pushed forward, trying to create a passed pawn on the queen side if there's an exchange. So rook behind the passed pawn, as I mentioned, a great strategy. And so now we have a retreat with check. King moves toward the, towards the center. Another check, and the king is stuck on the back rank here, and apparently it would have been better to go towards the center because now the king is just trapped back here on the back rank. I guess he didn't want to give up. F6 would have, not E6. Let me take that back. The king should have gone here, which would protect this pawn and get the king closer towards the center. But maybe he was afraid of, this pin maybe on the pawn. Pin on the pawn to the king. Game continues with the pawn pushing forward, and Capablanca has a passed pawn on the run here. And rook behind this passed pawn, and this is a mistake here. It would have been better to just push this pawn forward. Let's see what the computer recommended. B4, and then this pawn should just either march forward or the H pawn should march forward. But in the game, after a5, we have rook behind the passed pawn. The pawn keeps moving, and this is a missed opportunity. It would have been better to go here and threaten this pawn. Now we have capture. Capablanca finds the correct move now, and Capablanca is pretty much winning here. What should his opponent have done to keep the game a little closer? It looks like it would have been better, once again, to get behind the passed pawn. But after this capture, rook behind the C pawn, and it also allows this pawn to march up and get ready to promote. So pawn forward and one move away from promoting, and promoting with checkmate there. So, you know, what does Capablanca's opponent do? He gets behind the passed pawn finally, but it's too late because check, king moves forward, and now the pawn promotes. And this is where Capablanca's opponent resigned, because, you know, the game could continue with a capture here, but then rook would recapture. The king would be able to march up towards the center here and help stop these pawns along with the rook. So a win by Capablanca. Now, one thing I want to take a look at is the accuracy percentage here. So this is Capablanca as a 12-year-old, and he played with 95.4% accuracy, if you can see that here. The game was pretty much even the whole way through till his opponent kind of faltered in the end game and lost in that part of the game. So his opponent played well, 90.2% accuracy. If you can play in the 90th percentile, accuracy range, that's not bad at all. So here, Capablanca had one great move, 18 best moves versus 14 by his opponent. And so let's look at the bad moves. Inaccuracy. It looks like his opponent had one inaccuracy. Capablanca had none. They each had one mistake and one miss. So a fine game by a 12-year-old Capablanca. So I would highly encourage you, if you're trying to improve your chess, especially for beginners or even intermediate or experienced players, definitely study games of the past world champions and see what you can learn from their strategies and tactics. And also, a good recommendation is to pick a chess hero. If you're a beginner, I'd recommend an older chess master, maybe from even back in the 1800s, like Paul Morphy, a great player for beginners to study and learn from. And, if you like his playing style, you can try and copy it, play his openings, try and use the same strategies and tactics, and you'll learn from that. And then as you progress and your playing style may change, you might advance to newer chess masters, like Capablanca here, and then, at some point, modern day masters after your chess has improved, because the modern masters with their computer assistants are a little more difficult to understand. All right, well, feel free to leave any comments. Like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.